The week is shortened.
Our AC's out over here at the office, so
Oh, joy.
Fun.
yeah, we got somebody coming in a little later this afternoon. So, but yeah, it's fun stuff.
Let me know if he doesn't come by
Why?
because I have a guy
Know
in
somebody?
Jacksonville. I have a
Yeah,
guy in
yeah, we have a
Jacksonville and a guy
guy.
in St. Augustine.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I'll keep you posted. This is a good friend of Dr. Headley, so I'm assuming he's going to come through, but certainly we'll keep you posted.
Okay.
We'll give it a few more minutes. I don't have a trivia quiz today. I figure we just dive into it. Oh, we got Don in here. Hey, Don.
Actually, you know what we should do, Ray? I should talk to Dawn next week. Dawn should take your spot next week.
Don, did you hear that? If you can hear us, I'm going to be out of town next week, so we're sort of debating on doing a webinar next week, and Jose volunteered himself to be the host. But we're looking for a topic, and well, he just volunteered you, so what say you, Don? You want to participate in the webinar? We can talk about. Do you
The
want me
color
the
guard.
color?
Well, we'd be talking about something that you definitely know all about. All right, Dawn, your experience with the whole mess with e-clinicals and change.
Yes, I think that'd be a good discussion.
Which I'm curious to see how the whole perfect. Well then, Dawn, definitely I'll get with Ray later and we'll email you and get it all squared away. But I don't know if you guys saw that Ascension is selling all of the hospitals in Alabama to University of Alabama Birmingham
Oh, I didn't see
I
that.
did not see
for a
that.
$500 million
Wow.
as long as the regulators say it's okay.
How
Wow.
recent is that news?
I literally saw it this morning.
Wow. Nice
And
talk.
apparently it was an emergency meeting with the board of University of Alabama to review the deal. So this is moving quick. But they already apparently, yeah. Well, University of Alabama, Birmingham.
UAB,
So it'd
yeah,
be
UAB.
Birmingham running the hospitals, Don. So it wouldn't be Roll Tide. But yeah, so Birmingham's looking. Apparently, they already have a deal. Birmingham and Ascension's kind of similar to UF and Shands, where they partner in a couple different hospitals and a couple different programs. So this is just a natural extension. I'm
Mhm.
thinking, my personal tinfoil hat concept is Ascension is fundraising, so that way when the fine comes down, they can handle a payment.
I'm
So
gonna have to get with my friend on that and see what's
he
going
won't
on.
know anything.
It's still,
He's in
I guess it's
your friends in Jacksonville. This is happening in Alabama. He
uh,
probably
so that's
it'd probably be
only
news to him.
for the state hospitals
Only
or
for the 14 hospitals they have in Alabama.
okay, I got you. I got you. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah,
So
he probably wouldn't know then. He probably wouldn't know anything
yeah.
about it.
Yeah. So
All right.
but no, so I mean, so now that we've sufficiently bunny trailed.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and dive into it. Let me share a screen with you guys and let me know if you can see. It might take a second.
I can see. I don't see your screen, but I can see.
Well, I'm glad that you can see me at least. What about now? Anything?
Yeah,
It's
it's starting
coming.
to switch over.
Right. It is there.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get going. So, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar session and this new series that I'm calling EPICompliance Leadership Insights. And today's topic of discussion is going to be MIPS Audit Attestation with our CEO. And we're excited to welcome our guest expert today, Dr. Jose Delgado, the CEO of EPICompliance and Taino Consultants. If you guys missed our first episode of this series was beginning of last month. Please check out our YouTube channel. Actually, before the end of this webinar, I will post that previous video, but we did a little introduction of Dr. Delgado and his experience and essentially how EPICompliance was born. And but long story short, Dr. Delgado, he has over 25 years of experience in healthcare consulting. is a renowned healthcare executive working with many hospitals, MSOs, healthcare practices, and various healthcare businesses. He's going to be with us today, and I'm also joined by my co-host, Jose Jr., who many of y'all have seen on our previous episodes.
Yep. Yep.
Dr. Delgado, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else to that introduction.
Not really. I just want to get into it because
Yep.
we have a lot that we can share.
Yep.
Will be a little more productive than they can find about me. Just Google me and you'll find
Sure.
information about me. But let's get into what is important for them, for our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive into it. So I'm going to skip ahead just a tad. So today's discussion is going to revolve around MIPS, right? And Dr. Delgado, if you could, there's been some changes as of recent, correct?
Every year there's changes. It's a moving target.
Yeah, the important thing about MIPS is to, like I was doing a conversation with somebody else earlier today, and is understand the intent of the law so that you can actually be successful in healthcare. And it also goes back to the point of, if you don't know the rules, don't play the game. Because I don't know anybody that will get into a game and win if you don't know the rules. Well, that's MIPS. The MIPS is basically data that Medicare expects us to collect and to emphasize while we are seeing the patients, so that supposedly that will be more efficient. But there's a darker side to MIPS, and this is my own opinion. And I'm going to go back even to previous years, where every year we went through the end of the year, September 30, and we were looking at, are we going to get a Medicare raise or not? Okay. And based on a formula and based on different laws, we were actually supposed to get a cut of 10%, 8%, 20%. It got to a point that it was foolish to even consider that, because every
This
time
is the SGR formula, right?
Exactly.
The SGR
Exactly.
formula. So if anybody that remembers seeing that acronym SGR, just short case it to you're supposed to get a cut in Medicare. So be thankful you didn't get a cut.
Yeah. It got to the point that the cut was going to be more than what it costs to see a patient. Plus also every year that they proposed it, it went to Congress, and then Washington said, no, we cannot do that. So they will basically say, no, instead of using the formula, we're going to increase 3%, 4%, something like that. Well, that gets old. So how does Medicare get ahead on that? And again, this is my own opinion based on all the information I've seen, is that, well, if we give the providers a formula that we say, listen, our budget stays neutral. So it's up to you what kind of increase you're going to get. Well, if you follow MACRA, and for those that follow under MIPS, follow MIPS rules for that year, you can get a 9% increase. But remember, it's neutral, so you can also get a 9% decrease. But you have to make sure that you submit to us this data. Well, stopping there, what happens? Well, now, me as a provider say, listen, Medicare is paying me 9% less. They go to Congress, Congress goes to Medicare and say, we have no control, it's on them. They didn't submit the data. So it squashed that fight altogether. But then the problem is that every year they change the numbers, the variables. Once one of the requirements is met by 80, 90% of the people say, we're not using that measure anymore. Everybody's doing really good on that. So we're going to change it. So every year,
for example, this one would be the e-prescribing.
Yes.
Right? Where for a while there, you can get points for if you had a certain population of your prescriptions were sent electronically rather than through faxing or by hand. Now that's gone. Still required, but you don't get any points for it.
Okay, and they took that. They took that away because what? Everybody was doing Everybody's passing it.
It was the easy
doing
one.
it, and that was it. Yeah, easy pass. Easy pass.
So the thing is that depending on who you are, what is your specialty, are the measures you have to look at it. And then if I get too deep into it, everybody's going to get lost. So suffice to say that there are 4 categories. Out of those 4 categories, there are over 200 categories. And then depending on what you do or how you do is the percentage of patients that have to meet those requirements in order for you to submit and count for points for you. Okay?
You're talking about the quality performance measures, correct?
Well,
Any
In
of
a
those.
sense.
That's
Any-
one section, Ray. Yeah.
there are
Understood.
4 sections. And like I say, one of them is over 200 categories. And one of those, even when you look at that category, it depends on the percentage of patients that you have seen that meet that requirement. I mean, it's crazy. And again, like I say, it changes every year. So what happens now? Moving forward into MIPS audits. Well, when you submit that information to Medicare, and part of the information you need to submit, which is really the one where I say, this is the minefield, attestations. What is an attestation? An attestation is you checking the box saying that you did this. Well, a lot of the office managers I know, they have no clue. All they are told by their advisories, check this, yes, otherwise you don't get the point. Well, they check yes, yes, yes on the attestations. Well, what happened is that all the way back to 6 years, because of the statute of limitation, they can go to you and say, hey, your attestation says that you completed the SRA on the year, and we're now in 2024. So I want to see your SRA from 2018 and 2020. Normally, they may ask for something like that for 3 years, 2018, 2019, 2020. If you fail any of those, what happens? Or fail to provide any of those? Well, number one, you committed fraud because you use an electronic system to tell the government that you completed something that you didn't do. You did
And this
that.
goes back to the PPACA, where you're automatically assumed guilty, not presumed innocent.
Right. So when they go there, because it may go all the way to the Department of Justice, it shows that there's intent, because the reason why you attested yes without doing it is because you wanted to have more money from the federal government. That now it becomes almost like a false claims act. So it becomes a whole point that you need to make sure that anything that you attest to, you have your hands on that document. But now let's talk about the data, the MIPS data that you are attesting to. Well, a lot of the time right now, what the software is doing, a lot of the EHR, they are actually trying to make it easy for you. So you select the measures, they give you the totals, you submit those totals. Sometimes it's just pushing a button and goes. Well, the problem is when they come back, they're going to say, okay, so now that you submitted these numbers, these totals, I want to see the name of the patients that you said that are included in that report. And I want to see proof on the medical record that that item was covered. So what happens? Well,
Everybody checks the box.
well, that's the problem. Everybody's checking the box, but they don't
It's
matter.
too vague. It's too vague.
Ray, it's worse than that because most of the EHRs now have a billing component. So they're incentivized, they're financially incentivized to make sure that you check every box possible. So that way you get the maximum payout and they in turn get another maximum payout, right? Because
Right.
everybody pays a flat fee for the EHR. And then there's a bonus piece depending on how it's structured, either on a per claim or a percentage or all that fun stuff. So the EHR is actually coaching practices on how to do this stuff, but they have no liability. They have no
Right.
skin in the game.
Right.
They recover the cash. They set all this stuff up, but they're not the one facing the federal government at the end of it.
Right.
Yeah. And the problem is that you don't know really who's going to be audited. We were very busy when they were doing the meaningful use audits. And it was basically, it's not if, it's when. Because all they're going to look at, and I saw practices that it was a one doctor just doing maybe working 2 days a week, and he was audited. And I say, come on, people. But the problem was, and this is where we get into the problems. Right now, when you are submitting, everything is good. I run the report, gets me the percentage, I submit it, runs perfect. Audit comes back. Well, I'm going to tell you about actual things that happened to our client. One of them, again, it's not this year, it's years later. One of them, the software upgraded. So the company, basically, the old software was no longer available. So even if they had the ability to look and bring this old software back, there was no software that they could use to read the data and recreate the report that they needed to respond to the audit. I have another one where one company bought the software that they use for submittal of the audits. This company told their clients, now you have to upgrade to our system and we will archive all the data. Well, when they archive all that data, the data was corrupted because they moved it from one platform to another. So now my client is facing an audit. We go to the EHR. Well, you say you had it. We pay you extra to archive that data. Fine, and we did. But the data cannot be read. It's corrupted. So now what do we do? I mean, and you're going to see things like that happen that people don't think about it because they are just pushing a button, pushing that, okay, we saw 200 patients and the measure was 50% or more, 100 of them, we click this on the EHR and oops, we don't have access. I mean, I have one case where the person that they were auditing was no longer in the practice. So the provider,
yeah, or the office manager isn't there, or this is 3 EHRs ago now.
Right.
So how do you go there? I have one that I had to go all the way, and I not mean physically, but I had to fight it all the way up to CMS in Washington because the doctor or the office manager's email was the one that was submitted as part of all this report. That person wasn't no longer there. So when CMS sent the audit, which is not CMS, it's actually a third-party vendor that sends the audit request, they didn't respond. The time period elapsed. So what happens now? Okay, so now we're going to go into the fines. Now we're going to go into the money that we're going to recoup because now, based on this, as of this year, you didn't meet the requirements. We pay you so much more because you said that you had the points. So now we're going to go back all the way there, and we may even go far back. So I've seen it go back at least most of the time about 3 years, but they can go up to 6 years back. So what are we
Now,
talking
most of these
about?
auditors have no experience in healthcare, so
That's right.
they're usually an accounting firm. So if you do get a notification like this, you should not expect something with an official governmental signature or badge of any kind because this is farmed out.
Yes.
So keep that in mind, everybody. It's
Yes.
usually from an accounting firm, usually from the New England area. That I believe the last couple, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Delgado, were in Delaware or Massachusetts or something like that.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So what, you receive a
um,
letter or is it
Yes.
knock on a door
Well,
or?
So first they send out a 37-cent letter, so that way you self-report,
Mhm.
and then they go in on their own.
Okay, so now they're not sending letters anymore. Everything is via
They're not
email.
even sending a 37-cent letter.
So
It's
what is
via-
that email sent to the associated practice and hopefully somebody sees it?
an email sent to the email that you submitted when you submitted
attested.
that attestation, that MIPS report.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Now, in a way, that was a saving grace for me because I was the one that handled that case because it was so difficult. By all means, they failed to respond to the audit. It was their responsibility because of the email. And then what the practice was going to see was the fines, potentially Department of Justice and Credit having to pay 3 times the amount of money that Medicare paid them for those years past. So it was, they were going to close. They were going to go bankrupt, close, and lose their licenses. But because it was the audit firm, I had to do a forensic audit, to show that everything was there, that everything was proper, and then go all the way to CMS. And I believe that the only reason why we were able to get everything reinstated was because Medicare didn't want the bad publicity that was going to come in. Because there was no way, and I couldn't find a single healthcare attorney that wanted to take the case because they say it's a loss. And you're not going to have even enough money to pay me based on the difficulty level. So the bottom line on this and what we got to look at is, okay, so what is it that we have to do? And the number one is you're going to play the game, learn the rules. So make sure that beforehand, you know what are the points that are going to count and that you are submitting that data. Even to a point that right now, if you haven't done anything about it, you're getting to be a little bit too late because for some measures is the whole year, some measures are 3 months, some measures are 6 months. So it depends. Is
it even worth it? Let's go there.
I was going to say,
is it
Jose,
even worth it?
We discussed the same in another webinar about that.
You and I have, but I mean, let's get, you know, like, is it even worth it? I mean, I'm in the firm opinion of if I am not already doing more than half of the requirements just naturally, it's not worth it.
Okay.
Because it's going to take too much manpower and time.
Well, look at it this way. It actually, like all the answers to any questions or the answer to any question is, it depends.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not making, what is 9% of your income, your gross income? And at that point in time, then you look at it and how much if it's going to cost me between software, between personnel, between changing my procedures. And if my costs are higher than that 9%, then it's not worth it. And I know some practices are going to, and I say, not worth doing this thing. I mean, you both know that I work with one practice that is 40-something clinics, 70-something providers, and we have determined that it's not worth the cost and or the liability as well. Because
also, but in that case, though, it is the majority of the practice population is not Medicare standard, Medicare traditional.
It's not Medicare traditional. You're right.
So I would definitely say if you are at that 45% Medicare population, one, stop it. One, stop it. Because even if you don't get the 9% reduction, everybody's talking about how either more people are going to get on Medicare or they're going to have to reduce rates or both. So figure it out. But if you're at 45% or more, you're kind of bent over a barrel. You kind of have to participate in some way, shape, or form because you can't afford the 9% reduction. A 4% reduction isn't as bad as a 9% reduction, depending on, you know, how much effort is involved again.
Yeah, but okay, but let's just keep it with the MIPS audit. So what is it that we got to look at 2024? Well, like always, you had the attestation of the risk analysis, but right now they also had the attestation for the safer guides. And some people, I tell you right now, they're going to say, well, safer guides is part of the security risk analysis, right? It's not. It's completely separate. If you have ever looked at the safer guides self-assessment and you open that and you have never seen it before, you're going to question, how am I expected to do this? And it basically to answer all of the safer guides, and that's why I have been putting so much information on the website about safer guides. It is extremely complex and time consuming. Now, for the, depending on what kind, I mean, the organization you're screwed, you have to do it. But for the providers, you can get away to say, yes, I did the safer guide self-assessment. I look at it and I answer no, I answer yes. So you don't have to do the full thing. But for that, if we were going to talk more about safer guides, I would say we need a couple of hours just to talk about safer guides. The bottom line is you do need to report about safer guides, and you need to keep that with you. You need to do the SRA. And depending on who you are, is how much you have to do it. And it's very important that you look at that because otherwise you're going to spend time and money that you don't need to do in the safer guides. But it is a new requirement as of this 2024. And it's the first time that they have included safer guides for most of the providers. Okay. So now let's look at what I have done for our clients in the past. And this is something that I'm going to actually ask you a trivia question. Jose, you may know the answer. I don't know if you already know it, but I can actually also put it there and then wait for the answer, and then you guys can tell them. But my point here is one of the things I always do is when I help a client to do any kind of submission to the government, I do two things. Number one, I print the reports and I put it on a book. And that's my book of evidence. Everything that I'm submitting with the number, I put the support information there in hard copy so that I can have it. Number two, I actually copy it into a PDF format and I make multiple copies because a PDF format, you will always be able to read it. And it's a snapshot and reporting based on this. Here are the reports so that like anytime anything happens, the system burns, lightning strikes, the company goes in bankruptcy. I have a copy that is in PDF that at any point in time I can upload and show them that I have every measure, the support information is there. I do that even for myself. Today I was talking with my accountant and I say, here's my information. And by the way, when you open this spreadsheet, every tab has the support information. So you can follow where the information is coming from. Anybody can lose it. And Jose can tell you, right, how many times we have clients that contact us saying, oh, you did my SRA for the year 2020.
It happens annually. It happens annually.
Yeah.
I charge additional.
No, we just send it to me electronically. You want me to print it out? Yeah, I'm going to charge you to print it.
Of course.
He won't, but I will.
Yeah.
You're going to make me print this out, put some holes in it, and then bind it up nicely? No.
It's wild that, wow.
Well, the point is that for everything that you submitted to the government, I create and I put the name Book of Evidence. There was a practice. There were 5 providers. I created a book of evidence for each provider because they may go after one provider out of the 5. And then from then on, it's just opening the door, kicking the door open. I mean, the easiest thing, and if I was an auditor working for the federal government or even for the state, I will just go and do an audit to multiple practice. And I say, I want a copy of your SRA for 2020. Boom. And
how often do they go, obviously, 2020, 2021, 2010, how often do they go back? Is that a normal thing or is that?
Yes, they never ask you for the current one. The only one that at one point in time was asking for the current copy of the SRA to be sent to them with the information you were submitting was Florida Medicaid.
Gotcha.
They asked for that. But for them to ask for previous years, I've never seen them other than Florida Medicaid asking for the current year. They always go 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. They don't push it to 6 years because they want to make sure that they have enough to go back on the fines and the settlement back a couple of years.
Gotcha. So you'd say it's safe to assume probably the most common is 2 to 3 years back.
Yes,
it's probably the most common you see. Yeah, makes sense.
Well, it's not even just that; it's the backlog.
Sure.
The federal government doesn't move quickly. These auditors don't move quickly because they get paid on commission.
Right.
So once they decide that you're a target, it's your lawyer, your protocols and procedures, and your consultant's job to make it so it's extremely expensive for them to keep going.
Yeah. Well, and I will
find me the practice, I'll find you the fine. You know what I mean? Like there's no way to be perfect with this kind of stuff. So it's just you just have to make it so complex and difficult and bury them in paperwork so that it's just not worth it. Because there's so many people doing nothing that why would I bother wasting my time?
That's right. You make yourself an easy target by not having that. Once you start showing that you have some of the reports, a book of evidence or all that, they lose interest. They say this
Sure.
is going to be too hard. I have one client that they were hitting him for over, it was close to $600,000. Okay. So I get in, I get involved, I prepare everything. I actually go against this agency and say, nope, you're incorrect. And here's the data. And we went back and forth for a couple of weeks. And then they say, you're right. They reduced the fine to 100,000, but then they added interest, they added administrative costs, they added so many things that it got back to 500,000. And I couldn't fight those because they were legally understanding that, oh yeah, we can charge you for this and that. So the bottom line was they wanted that $500,000 plus from this client. And no matter what I did in that case, they were going to get it. But the problem was, again, I had to do a forensic audit. If I would have had that ahead of time and bat it off immediately, oh, you want that? Okay, I have my book of evidence here. Here it is. But then, even if you have that, there is an art to this. Is what information you present in response to the audit and how do you do it is how you're going to be playing. It's like playing chess. Because if you give them too much, they're going to look into that and they're going to find problems there. Like Jose said, nobody's perfect. And for me is, do I want to go there and get all of this ready? Or do I want to do my job? My job is to see patients. My job is to provide care, not to work this machine for all the laws, all the things that are coming in. That's why I created EPI, because a lot of what they're going to ask from the standpoint of policies and procedures or documents, I'm telling people to do it on their EPI. Make sure you do this, make sure you do that, but it's to protect you from this audit. Now, the trivia question for you guys is under HIPAA, what documents do you have to keep and for how long?
There's a lot there. That's a very broad question.
Well, then let me simplify.
You're hunting for something, but what are you hunting for?
Okay, I'm going to tell you so that you see how the law plays.
He's testing Don out.
Under HIPAA. No, very close, but no. Don't say 7 years. Under HIPAA.
It depends on what. 6 years, 5 years, 4 years.
Wait. Let me finish.
My guess was going to be 7. Just
okay.
throwing it out there.
Under HIPAA, do you have to keep copies of your medical records for 6 years? That's easy.
Well, no. If the patient's a minor, you have to hold it on to their 18th year and then plus 7 more.
Right.
I didn't know that. My initial guess was 7.
Well, the answer is no. HIPAA does not require you to keep copies of medical records. The HIPAA law requires that you keep copies of your policies and procedures. SRAs is about everything that is covered in business associate agreement under HIPAA. It does not require any length of retention for medical records. So most people, if I go to an office, that's why I say it's so easy. I can go to an office and say, I want to see copies of your medical records and your business associate and your SRA for 3 years ago. They're going to go, what? Well, that's what HIPAA applies to, not medical records. Well, because and the question is, why are we paying all of this money to Iron Mountain? Well, the thing is that you do have to keep copies of your medical records, and depending on the last time you saw the patient, what kind of patient, and also what is the source of income is how long do you have to keep them. But in addition to the electronic medical records, because or the patient medical records, that's a different law than HIPAA. HIPAA requires the documentation regarding the compliance program, not the patient medical records. So that's why I said there's so many laws and they are different.
Interesting.
And you need to understand which law applies to what position for you to know what it is. As a matter of fact, I will not keep patients, any kind of records, hard copies. I will just scan them and have a couple copies of that records on a PDF format again, and call it a day. And there are certain things that I will not scan, and then I will destroy them. You are increasing your liability the longer you keep a medical record.
Of course. I mean, we've seen acquisitions go bye-bye just because of the amount of records that had to be kept and for how long they had to be kept.
Yeah.
So it was so hard for a while to sell a pediatric practice because of all the records they had to keep.
Exactly. I actually have pediatric practices that I acquire and they pay me to acquire them because I was going to assume all the management administration of those medical records. And there were times, and actually there have been times that I buy a practice, I do not keep up the patient records of patients that are not active. Now, as a matter of fact, I try to say, no, I will be your administrator of the record for a period of time. But once I finish basically bringing in anybody I want to or everybody I can, I release the records back to you. I don't want that liability. And that's one of the things that HIPAA has changed in terms of the market.
Well, and that's one of the things that I'll probably be talking about with Sam at the end of the month. I'm bringing her on for just talk about mergers and acquisitions.
Yes.
So that'll be a good one to ask her about any of those kinds of caveats that we should be aware of when we're looking to sell or partner with somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, since we're talking about MIPS,
Makes sense.
And MIPS only applies to those that are actually billing, the entities billing for the service for Medicare, correct?
Correct.
If I am an entity within an entity, though, who's responsible? And I say this to say there's a lot of different ways. Well, so Ray, I'm gonna clarify now, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different interesting ways that both private equity is notorious for doing the practice within a practice, but also a lot of the God, why am I blanking on it? The PPACA came up with the first version. We were working with a company out of Miami that was doing this version 2.0. Why am I blanking on the type of practice that it is?
You could be talking about ACOs. You could be talking about
ACOs.
MSOs.
Yes.
Accountable care
ACOs.
organizations.
Yes. But see, so the way that some of the ACOs are working is that they're helping you so that way you get a higher rate.
That's correct.
So then who's liable for these kinds of, let's just call it errors or oversights?
Well, most of the time they go to the MPI that received the money. So even though the ACO was the one, let's say, billing for everybody, the ACO is representing you with your MPI. So they're going to come in.
ACO receives the money first. In some of the newer cases.
Doesn't matter, is because if you are billing something incorrectly, you're using a billing company, they're not going to go after the billing company. They go after you. Now, if you have billing people in your staff, they'll go after them as well, because it's all of you got together to commit fraud against the government. So again, we are, okay, guys, that's why I say this thing with MIPS and audit is very complex, because it's just talking about MIPS have multiple layers. Then just talking about how the organization is set up and how is it that you are submitting the information to the government, because that's the other point. How many ways can you submit information to the government to meet the MIPS requirement? Multiple. So you may say, okay, this encounter data, I'm going to use it. I'm going to submit it using my own EHR. These other data, I'm going to be using this organization to submit that data. These other data were part of the ACO. The ACO is submitting that data for us. So you may have 5, 6, 10, 12 submission points that are all separate that you need to keep track of. I mean, like I said, this is not a simple solution or simple process. At the end of the day, that's why for me it's important. I don't care who's submitting the data for me. I don't care how they are submitting it. I want a copy of not just the formula that say how many patients and how many of those I met. I want to see copies where that information is supported. At least a list of the patients and the date of service where I actually met that requirement, so that when I get audited, hopefully it's easier for me to get them that. I mean, I can actually provide you with copies of the letters for MIPS audits. I can, but that's too complex for today. The bottom line for today that I want to look at is, because this will serve no matter what kind of audit you have to face. It could be IRS, which that's another game that they're playing with most people now. Could be IRS, could be MIPS, could be meaningful use that is defunct. It could be any federal government. It could be even Department of Justice. Have the data supporting your claims with you. Make sure, because like I say, even the state DAs are trained on the security risk analysis, and they can prosecute based on that. So for me, that's the one document I have to do every year and keep safe. The safer guides is a new thing. Depending on how early or how late you do it and who you are, is how complex it's going to be. For some people, we may be able to get it done quickly. Most of the time, I don't even want to get involved. It's too complex. It takes too long.
When you and I started looking at the safer guides, and it's been bothering me,
Yes.
because there's so much overlap between safer guides and MIPS. Isn't the safer guides? I feel like safer guides is meaningful use 3.0. MIPS
No.
and macro was 2.0. Safer guides is 3.0.
No. Safer guides is more about security and your system. If anything, you need to compare the safer guides closer to the security risk analysis. But the security risk analysis under HIPAA, it's very clear what has to be done. That most of the time they don't do it because people say, well, I have my IT company complete my security risk analysis. Okay, great. Did they do the walk around? Did they look at your business agreements? Did they look at the human resources portion? No. Everything that they do is just based on IT. And people
No,
think
it's
that they're not
based on
gonna
the
do anything.
services that you're getting from them. Let's not even go into the actual IT section.
That's true. So those, I would say, papers, they're not worth their, I would say, the weight, they're not worth even as garbage. Just the opposite, they will increase your liability. So be careful about that. So that's why I say, no, you must know the law. You must know the intent, know the guidelines so that you can go forward. Okay. So right now, guys, I'm looking at quarter after, and I believe that you normally want to keep.
Yep. So I mean, any questions, guys? I mean, we'll be more than happy to dive back into this next month or even the month after that. Kind of depending on when everybody starts looking at this stuff in end of Q3, beginning of Q4, because they start panicking.
We can
But,
certainly look to dive back in it. That's for sure.
Yep, I will tell you this as someone who has had plenty of experience in the consulting field. The longer you wait to look at something, look at your consultant and your healthcare attorney that's going to be doing this stuff, as if you need it tomorrow, it's going to cost you a premium. So if you think you need an accountant or a lawyer involved to take a look at something, it's a lot cheaper to just have them take a look at it real quick, and they'll tell you, hey, do this, this, and this, bye. If you need some help, yeah, I'll charge you. But usually that's how that'll go. If you wait, that's where the clock starts ticking. That's where, all right, this is gonna have a comma in it, and I don't want to hear any complaints. Because it's just gonna take that much time, you know. Look at this stuff like if you've got to deal with your accountant. You know, you got a question throughout the year, you call the accountant. Some of them may bill you 20 minutes, some of them may not bill you at all to answer a quick question about the bookkeeping or this, that, and the other. But if you wait until March, if you wait till January and you got January, February, even, they're gonna charge you a pretty penny. So don't let it compound.
Okay. Just the last thing I want to say is that, like I said before, there are a couple of blogs that I wrote on the Taino Consultant page, and even today I posted one about the Book of Evidence. So if they want to go there and read more about MIPS, safer guides, Book of Evidence, the information should be there in an easy way to I would say, to absorb. And then they can come on back to us with questions. Okay.
Ray,
put
there,
your-
you can drop that link in the chat.
I just did.
Okay,
You did.
perfect.
Was this the right link? I hope it
Yes.
was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
I was just on here
Okay.
looking at some of the articles earlier.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm trying to, it's so complex. I'm trying to post 1 or 2 a week. And even as I'm posting, I'm looking at all the things that are happening. I said, dang, I should talk about that.
I might have missed it, but I have you slated in August 6th next month to talk on the Medicare Advantage changes.
Oh, okay. Don is asking about where is that located. You may have been a little bit too fast, right?
It's in the chat. Let me
Don,
see
I put
specifically.
the website link in chat, Taino Consultants, and then if you scroll down to the bottom of that page, it'll say our recent articles. And then Dr. Delgado, looks like the one that you're referring to is it audits and attestations, how to safeguard. Maybe I can just post that direct article itself.
It's
Maybe
the one I
that's
posted today.
there, Don. I just made it easier for you. You can just select that; it'll take you directly to the article.
Yep.
Or even the one from the 18th, the MIPS validation and audits.
I'll throw that one in here too. That was the one that when I was creating this presentation, I put kind of drew from that article. I just posted that one in chat as well, Don.
Yeah. Now, the beautiful thing about all of these blogs is that as I'm creating them, I'm also creating any policies that need to go with it and checklists on their EPI. So that way we make sure that we are ahead of the game and continuing to protect our clients on their EPI. Okay.
Absolutely. Well, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to post in the chat at this time. Dr. Delgado, Jose, myself, be glad to answer.
Yep. And then other than the 9th, Ray, what else have we got going on? I know we've got the rest of the month booked out.
So if
talking
everything works as planned, then you and Don will be talking next week. And then the week after, as of recent, and I know you guys know this, we've recently sort of pivoted to healthcare organizations with our compliance training, which is great because I know you guys know a lot of these doctors, they get out in the real world, they're not familiar with these things. So it seems like this day and age, these universities are taking a little more of an approach at getting these students the training that they need. So it's good for us. We've recently developed a training program for healthcare organizations. We call it an Educational Institute account. And we're going to be sort of going through and diving into how it can benefit students and sort of centrally manage all the students as well. So they're not all over the place and you're relying on them to take the training on their own and get those certificates to you. Everything's sort of centrally managed through this account, and they get their training. The professor can keep track of everything, and so can the clinical director. So that's what we're going to be talking about, not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after. I think that's the 16th?
Yeah, that'd be the 16th,
Yeah.
and then the 23rd.
23rd is still open.
Okay.
I'm looking to get, we have an affiliate. He does HIPAA compliant hosting, web hosting. I'm trying to see if he would be interested in talking. So
God, I hate
as of
that
right
phrase
now,
so much. I hate that phrase so much.
HIPAA compliant
Everything's
hosting.
HIPAA compliant with an extra fee, and it annoys me.
Well,
And it only annoys me because everything is HIPAA compliant as long as nobody touches it.
True. Okay.
The second somebody touches it, you're losing all the liabilities increased exponentially.
Okay.
It annoys the crap out of me.
Okay, Jose, back down. What
I
wanna
know,
do-
I'm sorry.
Okay. The key here will be not so much what information we consider to be important to present to the people that are following and listening to this thing, but where is it that they have questions? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm actually going to be working on something about, okay, what is the fair amount to pay my employees? What about, health insurance? There's so much more that are the things that we need to be considering as we deal with the daily operation of any business. How can we help them? Because we deal with that multiple times a day because of all the corporations and all the business we have. So what are your questions? What are your concerns? How can we help you with that as well? Of course, we will continue to try to keep you updated, but the laws are changing too fast to keep presenting everything, even on a weekly basis. Plus, some of these things are too deep. We want you to know enough so you don't get in trouble and know where to find the help you need.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, like that immigration package had some healthcare stuff in there too.
Yeah.
The one that Biden pushed through before the debate. So might have
Again,
to dive into that one. We'll
for
probably have to
another,
dive into that one into Q3. But yeah, so if you guys got any suggestions or anything you want us to talk about, as always, please feel free to reach out to Ray, myself, Dr. Delgado. If you have any questions about any of this stuff that we've been going over, or you want more one-on-one specifics, again, please feel free to reach out to us. We're pretty easy to get a hold of if you block it right. So if you let us know ahead of time rather than same day.
Right.
But yeah, so if not, if we don't get to see you guys or speak to you before the 4th, have a happy 4th. Be careful
yes.
with the fireworks. Be careful with the grills. And I guess if you're in Louisiana and Texas, watch out for Burl. Because next week
Right.
you
That's right.
later this week,
That's
early
true.
next week, you might get hit. So if you're in that area, get ready.
Okay, well, all I have to do is mention one thing, and it's something that I would say chances of you getting to the emergency room are very high if you are telling somebody, hold my beer.
Oh, my beer.
Chances are you're going to be
Right,
doing
right.
something that you know it's stupid and you don't want to spill your beer. So hold my beer normally ends up in the ER. And I've been not to the ER, but I remember hold my beer while I do this. Okay. Okay,
Well,
guys, I
if you
have to
do it
go.
though, I want video. I want to see it. I want to see it.
I understand.
Always.
I know you guys have seen that video of like this entire family sitting outside. It happened like 2 or 3 years ago. The entire family is lighting up fireworks. They left the whole set of fireworks next to the car.
Yes.
And it was like a bottle rocket or a firecracker or something. They lit off, it hit the whole thing of fireworks, and it
Yep.
just started going.
Yep.
That video just resurfaces every year for me, and it's just insane. It gets funnier. It gets funnier with age.
Okay, guys.
Don't be that person.
Okay. Everybody had a 4th of July. Happy 4th of July. Be safe and just let me know or let us know if you need anything. Okay. Gotta go.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. We'll see you next week. Take care, Jose. Better keep the sparklers is right, Don. Take care. We'll be in touch here shortly.